The stagecoach rattled into St. Joseph, Missouri on a blistering afternoon in August of 1871, and Katherine Jane Morgan stepped down onto the dusty street with nothing but a worn leather satchel, a faded photograph, and a determination that burned hotter than the midday sun. She had traveled for 3 weeks from Boston, enduring cramped quarters, questionable food, and the constant questions of nosy passengers, all to find the one person who mattered more than her own comfort or safety: her younger sister, Lily. Katherine adjusted her dark blue traveling dress, trying to shake off some of the dust that had settled into every fiber during the journey. St. Joseph was larger than she had expected, bustling with activity as men drove cattle through the streets and women hurried between shops with their market baskets. The air smelled of horses, leather, and something cooking that made her stomach growl despite her nervousness. She made her way to the nearest hotel, a modest 2-story building with a sign that read Jefferson House, swinging gently in the breeze. The proprietor, a heavy-set woman with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun, looked Katherine up and down with the practiced eye of someone who had seen every type of traveler the West had to offer. "Need a room?" the woman asked, her voice rough but not unkind. "Yes, please. And I was wondering if you might help me with something else. I am looking for someone, my sister. Her name is Lily Morgan. She came through here about 2 years ago." The woman's expression shifted, something flickering across her face that Katherine could not quite read. "I have been running this place for near 15 years, miss. Lots of people come through." "What did she look like?" Katherine pulled the photograph from her bag, handling it carefully. It showed 2 young women, both with dark hair and similar features, smiling at the camera. This was taken 3 years ago before she left Boston. She would be 20 now. The proprietor studied the photograph, then shook her head slowly. "Cannot say I recognize her, but you might try asking at the general store or maybe the church. Reverend Phillips knows most everyone who has passed through town." Katherine took a room, unpacked her few belongings, and washed the travel grime from her face and hands. Looking at herself in the small mirror above the wash basin, she barely recognized the determined woman staring back. 3 years ago, she had been content with her quiet life in Boston, working as a seamstress and living with their elderly aunt. Then, Lily had disappeared, leaving only a brief note saying she was heading west with a man she had met, someone who promised her a better life. Their aunt had died 6 months later, and Katherine had spent the next year and a half saving every penny, determined to find her sister and bring her home, or at least make sure she was safe and happy. The general store was crowded with afternoon shoppers. Katherine waited patiently, listening to the conversations around her, trying to get a sense of the town. When she finally reached the counter, the clerk, a young man with eager eyes, smiled at her. "What can I help you with, miss?" She went through the same routine, showing the photograph, asking if he had seen Lily. He studied it carefully, clearly wanting to be helpful, but eventually shook his head. "I am sorry, miss. She does not look familiar, but you should talk to Cade Richardson. He knows just about everyone in these parts." "Who is Cade Richardson?" "He has a ranch about 5 miles outside town. Keeps to himself mostly, but he comes in for supplies every week or so. Quiet fellow, but good. If anyone has seen your sister, he might know about it." Katherine thanked him and left the store, her heart sinking slightly. She had expected finding Lily might take time, but she had hoped for at least one lead on her first day. Still, she was not one to give up easily. She spent the rest of the afternoon walking through town, stopping at the church where Reverend Phillips listened sympathetically to her story but could offer no help, and at the saloon where the bartender gave her a strange look but insisted he had never seen anyone matching Lily's description. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Katherine stood on the wooden sidewalk outside her hotel, feeling the weight of disappointment settle on her shoulders. Tomorrow she would ask about this Cade Richardson, and she would keep asking until someone gave her answers. She did not notice the man watching her from across the street, partially hidden in the shadow of the livery stable. Cade Richardson had noticed her the moment the stagecoach arrived. He noticed everything in St. Joseph, a habit born from years of vigilance and a promise he had made 2 years ago. Cade was 32 years old, tall and lean with dark hair that fell just past his collar and eyes that had seen more than most men his age. He wore simple clothes, a dark shirt and worn pants with a gun belt strapped around his waist. He was not a gunfighter by trade, but he knew how to use the weapon when necessary. Mostly, he just wanted to be left alone on his ranch, working his cattle and horses, living a quiet life. But 2 years ago, that quiet life had been interrupted when a young woman had shown up at his ranch, terrified and desperate. Lily Morgan had been running from a man named Marcus Dalton, a charming con artist who had lured her west with promises of marriage and prosperity, only to reveal his true nature once they were far from civilization. Dalton ran a scheme that involved tricking young women into coming west, then selling them to the highest bidder in various frontier towns. Lily had managed to escape before the worst could happen, fleeing in the night and stumbling onto Cade's property half-starved and frightened. He had given her food, shelter, and protection. When she told him her story, he had made arrangements for her safety, helping her get to a small settlement in Kansas where she could start a new life under a different name, far from Dalton's reach. Lily had begged him not to tell anyone where she had gone, terrified that Dalton would find her. Cade had agreed, and he had kept his word. But he had also kept watch over St. Joseph, knowing that Dalton still had men in the area, still ran his schemes. When those men occasionally came to town, Cade made sure they knew to conduct their business elsewhere. He never confronted them directly, but his presence was enough of a warning. Now, seeing Katherine in town, showing Lily's photograph to anyone who would look, Cade felt a knot form in his chest. She was clearly Lily's sister. The resemblance was unmistakable, and she was clearly determined to find her. But if Katherine kept asking questions, if she drew attention to herself, Dalton's men would notice. They would want to know why she was looking for Lily. And if they discovered that Lily had escaped their operation, they would come after her again, and probably Katherine too. Cade knew he had to protect Katherine, even if she did not know she needed protecting. And somehow, he had to do it without revealing where Lily was, without breaking his promise. The next morning, Katherine rose early and made her way to the livery stable to inquire about renting a horse. The stableman, an older gentleman with a weathered face, listened to her request and scratched his chin thoughtfully. "You planning to ride out to the Richardson place alone, miss, if necessary? I was told Mr. Richardson might be able to help me with some information I need." "Well, Cade is a good man, that is certain, but it is a fair ride for someone not used to these parts. Tell you what, he is supposed to come into town this morning for supplies. You could wait and talk to him here." Katherine agreed, grateful not to have to navigate unfamiliar territory on her own. She spent the next hour exploring more of St. Joseph, noting the telegraph office, the bank, and a small restaurant where she ate a breakfast of eggs and biscuits. She was walking back toward the general store when she saw him. A tall man with dark hair was tying his horse outside the store, moving with an easy confidence that spoke of someone comfortable in his own skin. Something made her pause, made her study him more carefully. He glanced up, and their eyes met for just a moment before he looked away and headed into the store, Katherine felt something stir in her chest, an awareness she had not expected. She shook it off and followed him into the store, arriving just as he was giving his supply list to the clerk. "Mr. Richardson," she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. He turned, and she was struck by his eyes, a deep brown that seemed to take in everything without revealing much in return. Up close, she could see the lines around those eyes, the set of his jaw that suggested strength and perhaps stubbornness. "Yes." His voice was low, measured. "My name is Katherine Jane Morgan. I was told you might be able to help me. I am looking for my sister, Lily Morgan. She came west about 2 years ago, and I have been trying to find her." She watched his expression carefully, but it barely changed. A slight tightening around his eyes, perhaps, but nothing more. "I am sorry, miss, but that name does not sound familiar." Katherine felt her heart sink, but she pressed on. "Are you certain? She would have been 18 when she arrived, dark hair about my height, traveling with a man, though I do not know his name." "A lot of people pass through St. Joseph, Miss Morgan. I keep to my ranch most of the time." "I am not the best person to ask about who comes and goes in town." There was something in his tone, something that made Katherine think he was not telling her everything. But she could not accuse a stranger of lying, especially not one who had no reason to help her in the first place. "I understand. Thank you for your time, Mr. Richardson." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Miss Morgan, if you do not mind my asking, what makes you think your sister is in St. Joseph?" Katherine turned back. "The last letter I received from her was posted from here." "That was nearly 2 years ago. Since then, nothing. I have to find her, Mr. Richardson. I have to know she is safe." Something flickered across his face, an emotion she could not quite name, sympathy, perhaps, or concern. "I hope you find her," he said quietly. "But you should be careful asking too many questions in a town like this. Not everyone is friendly to strangers, especially young women traveling alone." "I can take care of myself," Katherine said, lifting her chin. "I am sure you can," Cade replied, and there was no condescension in his voice, just a statement of fact. "But that does not mean you should have to." Before Katherine could respond, he nodded politely and turned back to his business. She left the store feeling confused and frustrated. There had been something in Cade Richardson's manner, something that suggested he knew more than he was saying. But why would he lie to her? Over the next few days, Katherine continued her search, talking to everyone she could find, showing Lily's photograph until she had it memorized from every angle. She learned that St. Joseph was a hub for westward travelers, a jumping-off point for pioneers heading to Oregon and California. Thousands of people had passed through in the past few years. Finding one young woman seemed increasingly impossible, but Katherine also noticed something else. Wherever she went, Cade Richardson seemed to be nearby, not obviously following her but present. She would see him across the street when she left the hotel in the morning. He would be at the restaurant when she stopped for lunch. When she walked to the church one evening, his horse was tied outside the building next door. At first, she thought it was coincidence. But by the third day, she was certain he was watching her. The question was why. That evening, she waited for him outside the general store, standing in the shadows until she saw him approach. When he noticed her, he stopped, and she thought she saw resignation cross his face. "Mr. Richardson, I would like to speak with you," she said, stepping into the lamplight. "Miss Morgan, you have been following me for 3 days. I would like to know why." He was quiet for a long moment, and she could see him weighing his words carefully. "I have not been following you. I have been making sure you are safe." "Safe from what?" "From asking the wrong questions to the wrong people." Katherine's pulse quickened. "You do know something about Lily, don't you?" "Miss Morgan, I think we should talk somewhere more private. Will you join me for dinner at the restaurant?" She hesitated, aware that accepting dinner invitations from strange men was not exactly proper, but propriety seemed less important than finding her sister. Very well. The restaurant was quiet at this hour, with only a few other diners scattered at tables. Cade chose a corner table that allowed him to see the door and the windows, another habit Katherine was beginning to recognize. When they were seated and had ordered their food, he leaned forward slightly. "Before I say anything, I need you to understand something, Miss Morgan. There are dangerous men in this territory, men who prey on young women, especially those traveling alone or with someone they think they can trust. Your sister, if she was traveling with a man she did not know well, could have been in serious danger." Katherine felt her blood run cold. "What are you saying? What happened to Lily?" "I am not saying anything happened to her, but I need you to be careful how you ask about her. If the wrong people think you are looking for someone who might have information about their operation, they will see you as a threat. Or worse, as another opportunity. Then you do know something. Please, Mr. Richardson, Cade, please tell me, is she alive? Is she safe?" The desperation in her voice seemed to affect him. His expression softened, and he reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers but not quite touching. "I cannot tell you where she is. I made a promise, and I do not break my promises. But I can tell you that she is safe, she is alive, and she is somewhere she cannot be found by the people she was running from." Relief flooded through Katherine so powerfully that tears sprang to her eyes. "She is alive. She is truly alive." "Yes. Can you get a message to her? Can you tell her I am here, that I have been looking for her?" Cade was quiet for a moment. "I could. But Miss Morgan, Katherine, you need to understand that she left for a reason. She was protecting herself and probably protecting you too. If these men think you might lead them to her, they will follow you. They will use you. Then I will leave. I will go back to Boston. I will do whatever it takes to keep her safe. I just need to know she is all right. I need her to know I have been looking for her, that I never stopped caring." The food arrived, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Katherine could barely taste anything, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. Finally, Cade spoke again. "I will send her a message. I will tell her you came looking for her and that you are safe. But you need to leave St. Joseph soon. The longer you stay, the more attention you draw." "How long before she gets the message?" "A few weeks, maybe. The place where she is, it is not easy to reach." Katherine nodded, trying to process everything. "Thank you for protecting her. For helping her when she needed it. She is a good person who was in a bad situation. Anyone decent would have done the same." "I do not think that is true. I think you are a better man than you give yourself credit for, Cade Richardson." He looked uncomfortable with the praise, shifting in his seat. "I just did what needed doing." They finished their meal, and Cade insisted on walking Katherine back to her hotel. The streets were quieter now, with most businesses closed for the evening. As they walked, Katherine found herself very aware of his presence beside her, the way he kept himself between her and the darker alleyways, the way his hand rested near his gun but not on it, alert but not aggressive. "How long have you lived in St. Joseph?" she asked, wanting to know more about this quiet man who had protected her sister and was now protecting her. "I was born not far from here. My father had a small ranch, raised cattle. When he died, I took it over, built it up some. It is not much, but it is mine." "Do you live there alone?" "I have a few ranch hands who help with the cattle. But yes, mostly alone." "That sounds lonely." He glanced at her, and in the lamplight she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "It can be. But it is also peaceful. No one telling you what to do or how to live. Just you and the land and the work." They reached the hotel, and Katherine turned to face him. "Thank you for dinner and for telling me about Lily. I know you did not have to. You traveled a long way for her. You deserve to know she is safe. When will you send the message? I will ride out tomorrow. It will take me a few days to get there and back. You should plan to leave St. Joseph by the end of the week. Katherine nodded, though the thought of leaving without seeing Lily, without even knowing exactly where she was, made her heart ache. But if it meant keeping her sister safe, she would do it. Good night, Katherine. Good night, Cade. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the shadows, and realized that her feelings about leaving St. Joseph were more complicated than just worry about her sister. In just a few days, Cade Richardson had become important to her in a way she had not expected. The next morning, Katherine woke to find a note slipped under her door. In neat, careful handwriting it read, "Leaving today. Will return in 4 days. Stay out of trouble. See." Despite her worry, she smiled at the last line. She spent the day packing her few belongings and making arrangements for a return ticket to Boston. The proprietor of the hotel was sorry to see her go. "Found what you were looking for?" the woman asked. "In a way," Katherine replied. "At least I know she is safe. That Richardson fellow, he is a good man. Known him since he was a boy. If he told you your sister is safe, you can believe him." Katherine nodded, grateful for the confirmation. She spent the afternoon walking through St. Joseph one last time, trying to memorize the place where her sister had been, where Cade had saved her. She stopped at the church and said a prayer of thanks, then walked to the edge of town where she could see the rolling Missouri hills stretching into the distance. She was standing there, watching the sunset, when she heard horses approaching fast. 3 men rode up, rough-looking characters with hard eyes and harder expressions. The one in the lead, a man with a scar across his left cheek, pulled up his horse and looked down at her. "You are the one asking about Lily Morgan," he said. It was not a question. Katherine's heart began to pound, but she kept her voice steady. "I was looking for my sister, yes, but I am leaving town soon. I have given up the search." "That is too bad," the scarred man said, dismounting. The other 2 followed suit, spreading out to flank her. "You see, we have been looking for Lily too, and we think maybe you know where she is." "I do not know anything. I have been asking everyone, but no one has seen her." "Now, I do not think that is entirely true. We have been watching you just like that cowboy has been watching you. And we think maybe he told you something. Maybe he knows where she went." Katherine backed up a step, looking for an escape route, but the men moved with her. "I do not know what you are talking about." The scarred man smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Marcus Dalton wants to talk to you. He is very interested in finding Lily, seeing as how she ran off with some money that belonged to him. You are going to help us find her." "I will not," Katherine said, her fear turning to anger. "And if you try to make me, people will notice. People will ask questions. By the time anyone notices you are gone, we will be long out of Missouri. Now you can come with us easy or you can come with us hard. Your choice." Katherine opened her mouth to scream, but one of the men was faster, clamping a rough hand over her mouth. She struggled, kicking and fighting, but they were stronger. She felt something press against her ribs, hard and cold, and realized it was a gun. "Stop fighting, or I will shoot you right here," the scarred man hissed in her ear. "You are worth more to us alive, but not so much more that I will not risk it." They were dragging her toward the horses when a voice cut through the evening air, cold and deadly. "Let her go." Everyone froze. Cade stood about 20 feet away, his gun drawn and aimed directly at the scarred man's head. He must have ridden hard to be back already, and Katherine had never been so glad to see anyone in her life. "This does not concern you, Richardson," the scarred man said, though he did not release Katherine. "You have your hand on someone I am protecting. That makes it my concern. Let her go and ride out of here. I will not ask again. There are 3 of us and 1 of you." "I only need 1 bullet for you, Dalton," Cade said, and Katherine realized this was the man Lily had been running from. The other two will have to decide if they want to die for your bad decisions. Now let her go. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Dalton slowly released Katherine, pushing her forward. She stumbled but stayed on her feet, quickly moving toward Cade. "This is not over," Dalton said. "She knows something about Lily, and I am going to find out what." "You are going to ride out of Missouri and never come back," Cade said. "Because if I see you again, if I even hear that you are in this territory, I will hunt you down. And I will not be as merciful as I am being right now." Big words from a cowboy. Not words, a promise. Now ride. Dalton and his men mounted their horses, but not before Dalton gave Katherine a look that made her skin crawl. "Tell Lily I am still looking for her. Tell her she cannot hide forever." They rode off into the growing darkness, and Katherine felt her legs give out. Cade caught her before she hit the ground, his arms strong and steady around her. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice urgent. "No, I am fine. Just scared. How did you know to come back?" "I got a bad feeling when I was about halfway to my ranch. Something told me to turn around, that you might be in danger. I pushed my horse hard to get back." He helped her to her feet but did not let go, keeping one arm around her shoulders. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "The hotel?" "No, they know where you are staying. They will come back with more men. You are coming to my ranch." "Cade, I cannot. That would not be proper." "Proper does not matter when you are dead, Katherine. Those men will kill you if it means finding Lily. I will not let that happen." She looked up at him, saw the determination in his eyes, the genuine concern, and realized she trusted him completely. "All right." They rode through the night, Katherine sitting in front of Cade on his horse, very aware of his arms around her, holding the reins, keeping her safe. She had ridden horses before in Boston, gentle creatures in parks, but this was different. This was raw and real, the Missouri landscape rushing past them in the moonlight. His ranch appeared as the sun was rising, a modest but well-kept property with a sturdy house, a barn, and several outbuildings. A few cattle grazed in the distance, and she could hear chickens clucking somewhere. Cade helped her down from the horse and led her into the house. It was simple but clean, with furniture that looked handmade and worn but comfortable. He showed her to a small bedroom. "This was my mother's room before she passed. You can stay here. I will be down the hall if you need anything." "Thank you, Cade, for everything." He nodded, looking like he wanted to say something more, but instead he just touched the brim of his hat and left, closing the door behind him. Katherine sat on the bed, trying to process everything that had happened. She was in a strange man's house, far from town, with dangerous men looking for her. But she did not feel afraid. With Cade, she felt safe. Over the next few days, Katherine settled into an unexpected routine at the ranch. Cade was gone much of the day, working with his cattle and horses, but in the evenings they would share dinner and talk. She learned about his childhood, about losing his parents, about building the ranch into something he could be proud of. He was a good listener too, drawing out stories about her life in Boston, her work as a seamstress, her memories of Lily. "She was always the adventurous one," Katherine said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "I was content with routine, with knowing what each day would bring. But Lily wanted more. She wanted excitement and romance and all the things our quiet life could not give her." "Nothing wrong with wanting more," Cade said, "but she went about it the wrong way, trusting the wrong person." "How did you find her? When she came here?" Cade was quiet for a moment. "She showed up at my ranch in the middle of the night, half-starved and terrified. She had run from Dalton's camp, walked for miles through rough country. She thought I might hurt her too, but she was desperate enough to take the chance." "What did you do?" "Fed her, let her rest. When she was ready to talk, I listened. Then I started making plans to get her somewhere safe. Did she tell you about me? She did. She talked about her sister back in Boston who was strong and smart and kind. She was worried about you, what you would think when she did not write. Katherine felt tears prick her eyes. I just wanted her to be happy and safe. She is both now. And part of that is because you did not give up on her. You came all this way, even when you did not know if you would find her. That takes courage. Katherine looked at Cade, at the way the fading sunlight caught in his dark hair, at the strong line of his jaw, at the kindness in his eyes that he tried so hard to hide behind a gruff exterior. She realized that what she felt for him had grown beyond gratitude, beyond simple attraction. She was falling in love with him. The thought terrified her. She was supposed to go back to Boston, back to her old life. But the idea of leaving Cade, of never seeing him again, made her heart ache in a way she had never experienced. "What are you thinking?" he asked, and she realized he had been watching her too. "I was thinking that I should go back to Boston soon, that I have been imposing on your hospitality for too long. You have not been imposing." His voice was rough, and when he looked at her, she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Katherine, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "When I agreed to help Lily, to protect her, I did it because it was the right thing to do. I did not expect anything in return. But when you came to town, when I saw you looking for her with such determination, something changed. I started watching you to keep you safe, but then I kept watching you because I could not help myself." Her heart was pounding now. "Cade, I know you have a life in Boston. I know this is not what you planned, but these past few days, having you here, talking with you, seeing your smile in the morning, it has made me realize how lonely I have been. How empty this place feels when it is just me." He stood up, pacing to the edge of the porch. "I have no right to ask you to stay. I am just a rancher with a modest spread and a quiet life. You could have so much more in Boston, society and culture and all the things a city offers. But if there is any chance, any possibility that you might feel the same way I do, then I have to tell you. I am falling in love with you, Katherine. I think I started falling the moment I saw you step off that stage coach." Katherine stood too, her heart full to bursting. She crossed to him, taking his hand in hers. "I do not want society or culture or any of what Boston offers. I want this. I want you. I am falling in love with you too, Cade. I did not expect it, did not plan for it, but it is real and it is true and it is the best thing that has ever happened to me." He turned to face her fully, his other hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Are you certain? Because if you stay, if you choose this life with me, it will not be easy. This country is hard and the work is never done, and there will be days when you wonder if you made the right choice." "I am certain," she whispered. "I have never been more certain of anything in my life." He kissed her then, gentle at first, then deeper, his arms coming around her and pulling her close. Katherine melted into him, feeling like she had finally found the place she was meant to be. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cade rested his forehead against hers. "I will spend every day making sure you do not regret this," he said. "I will work hard, I will protect you, I will love you with everything I have. I know you will, and I will do the same for you." They stood there on the porch as the stars came out, holding each other, making quiet plans for their future. Cade would teach her to ride properly, to help with the ranch. They would build a life together, simple but good. But first, they had to deal with Dalton. The next morning, Cade rode into town to speak with the sheriff, a man named Tom Brady who had known Cade for years. Katherine insisted on coming with him, and though Cade was reluctant, he agreed on the condition that she stayed close to him at all times. Sheriff Brady listened carefully as Cade explained about Dalton, about the scheme he ran, about the danger to Katherine and Lily. The sheriff was a big man with a weathered face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I have heard rumors about Dalton," Brady said. "But rumors are not enough to arrest a man. If what you are saying is true, though, we need to stop him before he hurts anyone else." "He threatened Katherine," Cade said. "I saw it myself. That is assault at minimum. And if we can prove he was trying to kidnap her, that is a hanging offense." "The problem is, where is he now?" "He has a camp somewhere in the territory," Katherine said, "but I do not know where." "I might be able to find it," Cade said slowly, "but I would need help, and we would need to be smart about it. Dalton has at least a dozen men working for him, maybe more." Over the next few hours, they formed a plan. Sheriff Brady would deputize Cade and a few other trusted men. They would track Dalton's camp, gather evidence of his crimes, and arrest him and his men. It was dangerous, but it was the only way to ensure Katherine's safety and the safety of other young women who might fall prey to Dalton's schemes. Katherine hated the idea of Cade putting himself in danger, but she understood it was necessary. "Promise me you will be careful," she said as they prepared to leave the sheriff's office. "I promise. And when this is over, we are going to have the biggest wedding St. Joseph has ever seen." She smiled despite her worry. "I will hold you to that." The posse rode out 2 days later. Cade had tracked Dalton's movements and believed he knew where the camp was located. About 30 miles south of St. Joseph in rough, heavily wooded country. Katherine wanted to go with them, but Cade insisted she stay in town, protected by the deputy sheriff and several armed citizens who had volunteered to help. The wait was agonizing. Katherine stayed at the hotel, trying to keep busy with sewing and reading, but her mind was always on Cade, wondering if he was safe, if the plan was working. The other women in town were kind, bringing her food and company, but nothing could ease the knot of worry in her stomach. 3 days later, the posse returned. Katherine was sitting in the hotel lobby when she heard the horses, and she rushed outside, her heart in her throat. She saw Cade immediately, riding at the front, alive and apparently unharmed. Relief flooded through her so powerfully that her knees went weak. He dismounted and came straight to her, pulling her into his arms despite the watching crowd. "It is over," he said into her hair. "We found the camp, arrested Dalton and 8 of his men. The others scattered, but they will not come back. You are safe now." "Are you hurt?" "Just a few bruises." "Nothing serious." She pulled back to look at him, her hands framing his face. "I was so worried. I know. I am sorry I put you through that, but it had to be done." That night, there was a celebration in St. Joseph. Dalton had been a menace in the territory for years, preying on vulnerable young women, and his capture was cause for relief and joy. Katherine watched as Cade accepted the thanks of various townspeople, clearly uncomfortable with the attention but gracious nonetheless. When they finally had a moment alone, she asked the question that had been on her mind. "Did you send word to Lily? Does she know Dalton has been arrested?" "I did. A rider left this morning. She will know within the week that she is safe, that she can come out of hiding if she wants to." "Do you think she will come back?" "I do not know. She has built a life where she is. She might choose to stay there, but at least now she has the choice." Katherine nodded, accepting this. As much as she wanted to see her sister, she understood that Lily had to make her own decisions about her life. The wedding took place 6 weeks later, on a beautiful October day when the leaves were turning gold and red. Reverend Phillips performed the ceremony in the small church, with what seemed like the entire town in attendance. Katherine wore a dress she had sewn herself, simple but elegant, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Cade wore a new suit, looking handsome and slightly uncomfortable in the formal clothing. When he said his vows, promising to love and cherish her all the days of his life, Katherine saw the truth of it in his eyes. And when she made her own promises, she meant every word with her whole heart. The celebration afterwards was joyful and loud, with food and dancing and well wishes from everyone. As Katherine danced with her new husband, she thought about how much her life had changed in just a few short months. She had come to St. Joseph looking for her lost sister, expecting to find Lily and return to Boston. Instead, she had found love, had found a home, had found a purpose she had never known she was seeking. "What are you thinking about?" Cade asked, pulling her closer as they swayed to the music. "I am thinking about how happy I am, how grateful I am that I came here, that I found you." "I am the grateful one," he said. "You brought light into my life, Katherine. You made me realize I did not have to be alone. Neither of us has to be alone anymore." They moved out to the ranch the next day, beginning their life together in earnest. Katherine learned quickly, adapting to ranch life with the same determination she had shown in searching for Lily. She learned to ride, to help with the cattle, to cook on the wood stove, to tend the vegetable garden. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in Boston, but she loved it because she was building something with Cade, creating a life that was theirs together. Winter came, bringing snow and cold, and they spent long evenings by the fire, talking and planning. They spoke of expanding the ranch, of buying more cattle, of the children they hoped to have someday. Spring arrived with new life, and with it, a letter. It came in April, delivered by a rider who said he had been paid well to make sure it reached Katherine. She recognized Lily's handwriting immediately. "Dear Katherine, I cannot tell you what it meant to receive word that you came looking for me, that you never gave up. I am sorry for the worry I caused you, for leaving without explanation, for the silence these past years. I was ashamed of my foolishness in trusting Dalton, and I was afraid that if I contacted you, I would put you in danger. Cade Richardson saved my life. He gave me safety when I had none, and he helped me start over in a place where Dalton could not find me. I will be forever grateful to him, and now I am grateful that he has found happiness with you. From what he wrote, you are perfect for each other. I have built a good life here in Kansas. I work at a school, teaching children to read and write. It is simple work, but meaningful. I have friends, I have safety, I have peace. Someday, when I am ready, I will come to visit you and meet your husband properly. But for now, I want you to know that I am well, I am happy, and I think of you often. Your loving sister, Lily." Katherine read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Cade found her like that, sitting on the porch steps, and he sat down beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "She is happy," Katherine said, showing him the letter. "She is safe and happy and building a good life." "That is all we could hope for," Cade said gently. "I wish I could see her. I wish I could tell her in person how much I love her, how proud I am of her." "You will, someday, when she is ready. And until then you can write to her, build a relationship through letters. It is not the same as seeing her face to face, but it is something." Katherine nodded, leaning into his strength. "You are right, and I am grateful for that, grateful she is alive and well." They sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the Missouri hills, and Katherine felt a deep sense of contentment. Her life had not turned out the way she had planned, but it was better than anything she could have imagined. The years passed, bringing both joy and hardship as life always does. Katherine and Cade worked the ranch together, building it into a prosperous operation. They expanded their herd, hired more ranch hands, and became respected members of the St. Joseph community. 2 years after their wedding, Katherine gave birth to their first child, a son they named Samuel, after Cade's father. He was a healthy, happy baby with dark hair like his father and his mother's determined spirit. Cade was a devoted father, patient and loving, teaching Samuel about the ranch as soon as the boy was old enough to walk. 3 years later, they had a daughter, Emma, who had Katherine's quick smile and Cade's quiet strength. She was fascinated by everything, always asking questions, always wanting to help. Katherine and Lily maintained a regular correspondence, exchanging letters every few months. Through those letters, Katherine learned about Lily's life in Kansas, about the school where she taught, about the friends she had made, and eventually about the man she had met, a widower named James who ran the general store in her town. In 1878, 7 years after Katherine first arrived in St. Joseph, Lily came to visit. She brought James with her and their infant daughter, Rose. It was an emotional reunion, the two sisters holding each other and crying on the porch of the ranch house while Cade and James stood back, giving them space. "You look so happy," Lily said, touching Katherine's face. "I was so worried about you when I left Boston, worried you would be alone." "I was alone for a time," Katherine admitted. "But then I came looking for you and I found Cade instead, or he found me. Either way, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. He is a good man. I knew that when he helped me, but seeing him with you, seeing the way he looks at you, it is clear he loves you deeply. I love him too, more than I ever thought possible." They spent a week together, the two families getting to know each other, sharing meals and stories and laughter. Samuel and Emma were fascinated by their Aunt Lily, and little Rose was passed around and doted on by everyone. On the last evening before Lily and James had to leave, the sisters sat together on the porch, watching their husbands play with the children in the yard. "I am sorry I led you on such a chase," Lily said quietly. "I am sorry for the worry and the pain I caused." "You were trying to survive," Katherine replied. "You did what you had to do. And because of your choices, because of everything that happened, I found Cade. I found this life. So maybe it all worked out the way it was supposed to. I like to think so, and I am grateful you have him, that you have this beautiful family and this good life. You deserve it, Katherine. You always did. So do you, Lily, so do you." The years continued to pass, bringing more children, more growth, more change. The ranch prospered, and Cade and Katherine became pillars of the community, known for their generosity and their willingness to help others. They took in a young orphan boy named Michael when he was 12, giving him a home and a family. They helped their neighbors during hard times, offering work and support and friendship. Katherine never forgot the journey that had brought her to Missouri, the desperate search for her lost sister that had led her to Cade. She told the story to her children and grandchildren, wanting them to understand that sometimes the things we are looking for are not the things we find, and that is okay. Sometimes what we find is better than what we were looking for. Cade remained the quiet, steady man she had fallen in love with, but with her and their children, he opened up in ways he never had before. He laughed more, smiled more, let himself be happy. He told Katherine often that she had saved him as much as he had saved her, that before she came, he had been merely existing, not truly living. They grew old together, watching their children grow and have families of their own, watching the ranch pass to the next generation. Lily visited regularly, and the bond between the sisters remained strong despite the distance. James and Cade became good friends, and the families spent holidays together when they could. On their 50th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren threw them a celebration in the same church where they had been married. The building had been expanded over the years, but it was still the heart of the community. Katherine and Cade sat at the front of the room, surrounded by the people they loved, and Katherine felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Did you ever imagine this when you first came to St. Joseph?" Cade asked her quietly, his hand holding hers, his thumb rubbing gently over her wedding ring. "Never," she admitted. "I was just a frightened woman looking for her sister. I had no idea I would find a home, a family, a love that would last a lifetime. I had no idea that watching a woman step off a stagecoach would change my entire life," he said with a smile. "But I am grateful every day that it did. I love you, Cade Richardson. I have loved you for 50 years, and I will love you for however many more we have. I love you too, Katherine. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." They kissed, and their family cheered, and Katherine thought about the twisting path that had led her to this moment. She had come to St. Joseph looking for one thing and found something entirely different, entirely better. She had found love, purpose, family, and home. She had found Cade, the quiet cowboy who had been protecting her sister, and who had ended up protecting her too in more ways than she could count. And she had found happiness, deep and true and lasting, the kind that does not fade with time but grows stronger, richer, more beautiful with each passing year. Their story became a legend in St. Joseph, the tale of the woman who came looking for her lost sister and found true love instead. People told it to their children and their children's children, a reminder that sometimes the most important journeys are the ones we do not plan, and that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with an act of courage and a willingness to trust. Katherine and Cade lived to see their great-grandchildren born, lived to celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary. When Katherine was 84, she passed away peacefully in her sleep, with Cade holding her hand. He followed her 6 months later, unable to bear being without the woman who had brought light and love into his life. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a large oak tree they had planted together in their first year of marriage. Their children made sure the graves were well tended and placed a simple marker that read, "Katherine and Cade Richardson, united in love, forever at peace." Lily lived to be 92, and she often visited the graves of her sister and brother-in-law, bringing flowers and sitting in the shade of the oak tree, remembering. She remembered the terrified girl she had been, running from danger. She remembered the kind cowboy who had saved her without asking for anything in return. And she remembered her brave sister, who had crossed a continent to find her, and had found something even more precious in the process. The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through generations. Samuel's grandson eventually took it over, running it with the same dedication and care that Cade had shown. The story of Katherine and Cade remained alive in the family lore, told and retold, a testament to the power of love and the importance of doing what is right, even when it is difficult. In the town of St. Joseph, Missouri, a small museum eventually opened, dedicated to the history of the area. Among the exhibits was a section about notable local families, and the Richardson family was prominently featured. There was a photograph of Katherine and Cade on their 50th anniversary, their faces lined with age but their eyes still bright with love. There was the letter Lily had sent to Katherine in that first spring, carefully preserved. There were other artifacts too, small pieces of a life well lived. Visitors to the museum would stop at the exhibit, reading the story of the woman who came looking for her lost sister and the quiet cowboy who had protected them both. Some found it romantic, others found it inspiring. But everyone agreed it was a story worth remembering, a reminder of a time when life was hard but love was strong, when promises meant something, and when ordinary people could do extraordinary things. The oak tree on the hill continued to grow, providing shade for the graves below, its roots running deep into the Missouri soil. In spring, it bloomed with new life, and in fall its leaves turned gold and red before drifting down to blanket the earth. It stood as a living monument to Katherine and Cade, to their love, to their legacy. And if you were to stand on that hill today, looking out over the ranch that still bears the Richardson name, you might feel something in the air, some echo of the love story that began there so long ago. You might imagine a young woman arriving in a dusty town, determined and afraid. You might imagine a quiet cowboy, watching from the shadows, ready to protect. You might imagine the moment their eyes first met, the beginning of something neither of them expected but both of them needed. Their story ended, as all stories must, but the love they shared continued to ripple outward through time, touching the lives of their descendants, inspiring others who heard their tale. They had built something that lasted, something that mattered, something that proved love could be found in the most unexpected places, if you were brave enough to look, and strong enough to hold on when you found it. Katherine had come to town looking for her lost sister. The quiet cowboy had been protecting her for years. And when they found each other, they built a love that transcended time, a love that became legend, a love that reminded everyone who heard their story that sometimes the journey matters more than the destination, and sometimes what we find is better than what we were looking for. Their lives, their love, their legacy, all of it woven together into the fabric of St. Joseph, into the history of Missouri, into the story of the American West. They were just two people who found each other at the right moment, who chose love over fear, who built a life together one day at a time. But in doing so, they created something extraordinary, something beautiful, something that would never be forgotten. And somewhere, perhaps, in whatever comes after, Katherine and Cade were still together, still in love, still watching over the family they had created and the land they had worked. Together, as they had always been meant to be, from the moment a determined young woman stepped off a stagecoach in a frontier town, and a quiet cowboy decided she was worth protecting, worth knowing, worth loving for the rest of his life. The end came gently for their story, as it had come gently for them, with peace and satisfaction and the knowledge that they had lived well, loved deeply, and left the world better than they found it. Their story was complete, their circle closed, their love eternal. And that was the greatest gift of all.